in listen-only mode.
Okay, I want to convene the Single Family Design Board for April 27th, 2020. And I'd like to begin with having Ellen give us some announcements. So if you could go ahead, Ellen, and tell us what we need to know.
Thank you, Chair Miller. I just want to remind you, thank you again for everyone being so willing to test out. I recognize that this is the first remote public hearing for the Single Family Design Board. Just as a reminder, all the votes today will be roll call vote, and staff Ted Hamilton will be helping out with that. Right now, you've got a lot of staff support if anything goes wrong. I'm here, I will be moderating the public comment portion. So when people raise their hands or wish to contribute to the webinar, I'll be able to help you out with that when the chair opens it up for public comment. Ted Hamilton, of course, is the SFDB staff person. He will be helping you with the agenda items. And then I'd like to invite Timmy Bolton, if you wouldn't mind turning your webcam on. Timmy is in charge of managing all of the plans and the supplemental materials. So everybody who wishes to give verbal cues can give verbal cues to Timmy. That includes the applicants or board members when you want to go to a certain page or look at something or zoom in and out of a particular item. So those are, and then we also have Matthew Azilmas, who's going to be here until 5 o'clock as support as we have training, kind of getting things going. I just want to remind you that you are more than welcome, of course, to take a break at any point in time if the chair wishes, and we can put a slide up on the screen, and I'll just mute everyone, turn their webcams off, and you have that that opportunity if you need it. And then let's see, I think those were all of my notes. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Ted Hamilton for one more thing.
Yeah, click on that.
Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to make a quick note about the length of the agenda this afternoon. We do have 5 items on the agenda. The meeting is scheduled to, or rather timed to run till about 6 p.m. We'd like to try not to make it go any longer than that, just due to the, the novelty of the remote format. So we ask that applicants try to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. And staff and board members are going to be making an effort to move the meeting along and make sure that the reviews are on track and that we are moving along efficiently. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, I thank you, Ted and Helen. I also want to make an announcement and thank Jonathan for being back. Welcome back to the Single Family Design Board. You've been absent, and I'm really happy to see you back. And I guess we'll go to roll call. So.
Thank you. This is Mary Ternovskaya, Commission Secretary. I will now proceed with roll call. Chair Miller.
Here.
Vice Chair James. Okay. Board Member Farrell.
Here.
Board Member Motisha.
Here.
Board Member Richards.
I'm here.
Board Member Sweeney.
Here.
Board Member Ziegler. Board Member Ziegler.
Oh.
And Board Member James.
Here.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. So I guess we are going into public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda or a public discussion. So I don't know how this, has anyone put in an interest to have any public comment?
So just as a reminder, Mr. Chair, that in order to make an oral public comment using GoToWebinar, the members of the public would just have to click on their hand icon, which is on their control panel. They have a different control panel than what you do. And I currently don't have any members of the public who wish to speak as just on the general section. So I'm going to hand it back over to you to continue.
Okay, thank you. So now we go over the approval of the minutes of the Single Family Design Board for, I guess, March 2nd. So I would like to make a motion for approval.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all right. Do we have someone approval initially? Brett?
Mr. Sweeney, we don't have your audio on.
Oh, sorry, I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go through each of the projects like we normally do. Is that correct? All right. Item number 1 was a presentation of the census. Item number 2 was 665 Circle Drive. By the way, before I go on, did everyone have copies of the agenda? Did you guys make copies, or do you have no, yes, whatever? Well, they're on the screen here. Okay, cool. Item number 3, 102 Santa Rosa Place. Item number 4 is 705 Island View Drive. Item number 5 is 512 East Islay Street. Wow. Item number 6 is 1789 Kai Poniente. Item number 7 is 440 Northridge Drive. Item number 8, 301 Mohawk Road. Item number 9 is 160 Conejo Road. Okay, with all the projects reviewed, all those in favor? So we'll do a roll call, I guess. So Ellen, so I just mentioned the names of the person?
So actually, staff will run through. So I'm going to hand it back over to the SFDB Secretary, Mary, to do roll call.
All right, thank you.
This is Mary. We have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion passed.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go on to March 9th for the consent calendar. So do I have a motion? Make a motion?
I'll make
for
a
the.
motion to approve it.
Do I have a
I
second?
second it. I
Okay.
second it.
Oh, that was Joe. Okay, thank you, Joe. So does the secretary speak on this, or should I just mention the address? Because it's one item or 2 items. Item A, 476 Braemar Ranch Lane. Item B is 2007 Santa Barbara Street.
And Mary will continue to do we'll do another roll call.
Okay,
This is Mary. We have Chair Miller,
yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion carried.
Thank you. Now to single family design consent minutes for April 13th. You have 1607 Shoreline Drive. Item B, we have 476 Braemar Ranch Lane. Item C, we have 840 Seema Linda Lane. Item D
I
is,
apologize, Mr. Chair, but in the future, Ted Hamilton should be reading the consent minutes.
that's what I was thinking. No one said anything. It was got quiet. So Ted, would you take over, please? You have the floor.
Sure thing. Okay, so reading the minutes for the April 13th Single Family Design Board consent meeting. And to clarify, as a point of order, I should just go through and read the item number or the item letter and the project address, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
As well as the and the motion, but typically just the bolded part of the motion.
Okay. So for item A, we have 1607 Shoreline Drive. The approval of review after final as submitted is the motion. For item B, we have a new item for concept review, 476 Braemar Ranch Lane. This item received project design approval and final approval. For item C, we have 840 Sima Linda Lane. This item received project design approval with comments. For item D, we have 1158 Crestline Drive. This item received project design approval and final approval with comments.
Hi, this is Mary, or I'm sorry, do we have a first and a second?
You have the first, I think Lisa said first and.
Joe was second.
All right, thank you. I will now do the roll call. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. Now on to the consent calendar for April 27th. Ted, please.
I believe we skipped the minutes for April 20th for the consent meeting.
Oh, you did? All right, sorry. Let's go back to the April 20th. Got a lot of calendars here.
Yes, we do.
All right, Ted, please, can you go
Okay,
through the,
for the April 20th, 2020 consent minutes, we have item A, 1674 Franceschi Road. This item received project design approval with comments. For item B, we have 1142 Harbor Hills Drive. This project received final approval with comments. For item C, we have 820 Alston Road. This item was continued indefinitely with comments.
also, Ted, just to let you know, in the past, what we've done is we've also announced who was the reviewer, who were the people that review these projects. Usually they say, these were reviewed by so-and-so, and in this case, the members present were reviewed by Mr. Motisha and Mr. Richards. That's usually.
Chair Miller.
Okay, our next agenda minutes is for.
Do we have a first and a second?
I make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second,
second it.
who is that?
Fred, I'll second it.
Thank you.
I will now do the votes. Chair Miller,
Yes,
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank you. Now to April 27th. Ted, please. Oh, now I have to make a motion to approve the minutes before. Now I've gotten confused. Do you want to make a motion now or after you're done? Hello?
I believe for the next step.
Mr. Chair, this is Fred. The appropriate approach by Robert Rules of Order
Yeah.
is Ted would read the actions of the consent calendar,
Yes.
And then you'll ask for a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will read the actions of the consent calendar for April 27th, 2020. For item A, we have 35 Leslie Drive. And this item received project design approval, and it was continued indefinitely to consent with comments. For item B is 519 West Anapamu Street. This item received project design approval and was continued indefinitely to consent with comments. Item C was 1547 La Coronilla Drive. This item received project design approval and final approval with comments.
Thank you. And the projects were reviewed by Mr.
Maticha and Mr. Richards.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Fred.
A second?
I'll second it. Jan?
Thank you.
This is Mary. I will take votes. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney, Board Member
Yes.
Sweeney, thank
Yes.
you, and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements or requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items or appeals? And appeals? Seeing I hear none.
Brian?
Yes,
Sorry.
Fred.
Yes, I want to make a comment based on our March 2nd meeting. And this is for all of you, just as a lesson, so to speak. After our March 2nd meeting, I received a handwritten letter from a neighbor with regards to one of the properties that we have reviewed. And I'm not going to reveal the address or the property or the person that wrote me the letter for privacy issues. But the letter indicated to me specifically that I had disparaged the person's property in describing the neighborhood, and that person was highly upset that I made comments about the home and how it looked and so forth and so on. And so I followed that with an apology letter, which I did apologize for making those kinds of comments specifically to someone else's house that wasn't the subject of the review, and apologize for my conduct and unprofessional behavior. The lesson learned, our words count. People do watch us. They do listen. The individual who wrote the letter was not in attendance, but watched it on television, and was an adjacent neighbor to the project. So I think it just kind of reminds us that sometimes in the heat of the discussion and the heat of the battle, we might tend to say something that's not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. I really appreciate that. And that kind of underscores that what we do is somewhat subjective and that architecture is quite emotional. So yes, thank you for that. Let's see, anyone else? Anything else to be said here? Hearing none.
Mr. Miller, pardon my interruption, Ellen Kokenda.
Yes.
So I just want to remind everyone just to make it the best quality for this type of format. If you could just remember to mute yourselves. Again, just as a reminder, you can go to the GoToWebinar control panel and use the little microphone icon to turn your microphone off. It's just good practice that when someone's not speaking, so we don't pick up all that background noise. For instance, I know that there was a phone call earlier or just like little stuff like that. If just to kind of make sure that your cell phones are on silent and that you mute yourself and turn your webcams off when you're not speaking. But thank you so much. I just wanted to remind everyone once more.
Thank you,
Brian, before
Yes,
you,
Fred.
before you finish up, I have a question. This may be for Timmy. Some of the drawings that were sent to us, I went on and using my laptop, which has a little screen, there was a couple projects I really needed to look at some of the details. I know how to zoom in and out on my computer, but I couldn't figure out how to print out a copy of just the large section of an elevation, of just one of the elevations. There was 4 on a sheet. I'm not sure it's because I don't know how to use my computer, or there's not a way to do that. I saved one of the, I downloaded one of the sets of drawings to my hard drive and tried to do it that way, but I still couldn't figure it out. So I guess the question is, will we be able at some point to get a little help offline from city staff?
I think, yes, we can help you offline to do that. I also want to point out that during this hearing, if there's something specific you'd like me to zoom in on, I'm certainly happy to do that. You know, if you tell me which page to go to and which section you'd like to focus on, I'm happy to facilitate that.
Hey, Timmy, can you?
And there will be, there is a couple things I'll want to look at in depth. Thank you.
Timmy, can you introduce yourself? Who are you?
Hi, my name is Timmy Bolton. I'm an associate planner. I work in long-range planning, been with the city for about 7 years now, and just trying to help the team facilitate us into the digital age in these strange times.
So you're the tech guru, right? For this meeting.
For this, yes.
Got it. Thank you. All right. I think that's it for that part. And I believe we can go into the projects. And the first project on our agenda is 216 Santa Rosa Place. So, okay, it's a new item, so I'll read into the record. It's a proposal for a 592 square foot addition of an accessory dwelling unit over an existing 1,491 square foot single unit residence with an attached 383 square foot 2-car garage. Project includes a new trellis at the first floor deck and a new deck at the second floor with 42-inch tall wood cap stainless steel railings. Site alterations include a new air conditioner, rebuilt fence gate, southwest corner of garage, and replacement of a garage window. Project is located on an 8,441 square foot lot located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. No appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Review from the staff hearing officer is requested for a modification to allow the ADU's front deck to encroach into the required front setback. Project will require neighborhood preservation findings. If you can introduce yourself, Mr. Clammer, and show us your project.
Okay, thank you. I'm Bob Clammer, project architect with Kupiec Architects. Before I start, I'd like to thank all of you for your public service during these crazy times with the health crisis. As presented for the property owners, Ann Tozier and Joe Braemar, can we start with the cover sheet, which seems to be up. The vicinity map in the lower right-hand corner shows that the house is just up from Shoreline Drive, a few blocks in the Mesa area of Santa Barbara. And then if you, Timmy, scroll back to the top of the screen, you'll see the 3D view of, it was a single-story house on the Mesa, and we added the second-story ADU over the garage and over a portion of the living room. And the ADU itself complies with all the zoning ordinances and is not in contention at all. It's exempt from this review in actuality. It's the deck that stacks over the existing non-conforming garage. The garage is not at the 20-foot setback like the ADU. Garage is at a 15-foot 10 setback. So it's legally built existing non-conforming. We would like to replace the remnant piece of roof that would be over the garage between there and the ADU with this small deck with a railing that's combined with both a low pony wall and then an open rail on top. And that's largely just add a little design character, not make it too open, provide a little privacy for the tenants. If we could go to sheet 0.40, the site plan. You can see the site there with the gray post shade yard, and maybe just zoom in a little bit more to it so we can see the post shade areas and got the neighbors around there too. The light crosshatch around the perimeter of the house shows the existing house. The square box crosshatching is the ADU. To the left of that is, go down a little bit more, right there, that's the stairway that's being added to get to the ADU. It's out of the setback, out of the front yard setback too. And then a little bit lower towards the front yard is, and in front of the ADU, is the deck. And if you look real closely, I think you can see the setback line, the 20-foot setback. Maybe zoom into that front part of the ADU. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know how easy it is for everybody to see that, but 20-foot setback is the ADU, and then the garage, existing non-conforming garage, and the deck are both at the 15-foot 10 setback. And it encroaches on the closest corner 4'2" into the front setback, and because of the curved street, the other side, the left or southwest corner encroaches only 2'3". If we could go to the floor plan sheet A100. Keep going. Too far. And maybe this has the first floor plan on the right and the second floor on the left. And yeah, we can zoom in to see, we can look at the first floor first and zoom in at to the garage. And you can see once again the 20-foot setback with the existing non-conforming garage into that zone. You can see the stairway on the left side of the garage or west side. That's also out of the setback if you follow that little 6-foot side yard setback. There's a landing that goes into that ADU. It's allowed 3 feet of encroachment into that side yard. And then at the top of the sheet, it says new deck. That's to tie into the house if and when they would like to hang out with them. That's out of the setback. So there's no modification needed for that. And then go to the second floor on the left, if you would. And the deck being on the front is for a few reasons. It's a nice outdoor area. It's also towards public space. This was selected over having a deck in the back. The back would allow one to look into the neighbor's yard, not good for their privacy. So by putting it in the front, that's good neighborhood policy. Also having the deck, when we see the elevations in a little bit, it helps step the elevations back. I think it's got more interest than just leaving a little roof there. And the deck railing adds interest. There's also, I might get into that when we look at the elevations. I think it might be good to jump to the site photos on sheet, if you have this, I hope, A0.50. It was emailed to Ted on Friday. There we go. So now you got a nice street view with the site in the middle and 1 2-story house on the west side. If you go to the second row of photos, a little closer up the driveway, and that middle photo where the hand is right now shows the westerly neighbor. They actually have the same thing that we're proposing with the second floor setback and a deck out in front, which their deck is even closer to the street than what we're proposing. And then to the right of that is a view of the street, surrounding neighborhood from the roof, a couple side yard photos on the bottom row, and then the last photo, bottom right, shows the view from the ADU location towards the rear yard, which is full of foliage. And I might just mention there's one, you can see a big pine tree there. There's one little dot where that's the stucco siding of the house behind them. Barely can be seen. Their view is actually to the right of that tree over the portion of the house that we are not building on. So there shouldn't be any contention there. Okay, maybe we get back to the elevations of sheet A 2.0. There's the front deck. You see the front elevation on top with the railing, and tried to add interest to it. It's not completely open like some of the examples. I have a photo to show you later where it just is too open. This is, I didn't send it in, but maybe I can zoom in on this. You know, a wrought iron railing on top, you know, looked by Feeney or Cascady, something like that. And then we could go, oh, I just might point out the gate over there on the left side. It's the same location as the existing gate. It's just, or the fence is, but we move the gate over so that you don't walk into the stairwell beyond. And then maybe go to the elevation below that. And you can see how the first floor garage is on the right, and the deck above it, and the second floor setback. And we added the wood siding as a request from our client who found a home in the neighborhood they really liked. It had siding like that. I have a photo of that to show you later as well, but it also wraps around and ties the rest of the house together too. So I think that's a nice detail. And then if you want to go on to the next elevation sheet, which is, and the one after that shows the rear view and the other side view with the same step back configuration. And then maybe we could show you some photos of the neighborhood for context. Go back to the photos received last Friday. And photo one, it's not that one. It's, we'll get to that in a minute. Are there any other photos in your queue? Is what?
Timmy Bolton here. Unfortunately, this is the only photo sheet I have that was submitted as part of the packet.
Okay, that's challenging. I'm going to tell you about the other photos real quick. There's several homes, and you probably are all familiar with Shoreline Drive, where they have balconies or decks across the whole front of their elevation. It's quite common, and a lot of them, just like the neighborhood photo in the middle here, a lot of the second floors are set back for probably the same reason. One of the photos I had showed somebody who set the second floor back and left the roof there, put a little bay window over it, and the deck on the side. And the deck on the side looked into the neighbor's yard, and the roof looked small. It wasn't bad looking, but just wasn't as open as it could have been. And then in closing, let's go back to those other documents of the neighborhood map. And all the green colored lots are neighbors who supported this project. They got to look at the plans, and we have signatures on the next sheet. The two with asterisks, we can go back to that. You can scroll down. Okay, I stayed up for a second. The two with asterisks were not home or not available, and the one with the dot didn't sign because they were in the middle of entertaining, wanted to look at the plans more. They were concerned with their views, but that is the house I mentioned. Their view actually looks more or less across the property line between the 216 lot and 212 lot, which is the opposite side of this property where the ADU is going. And then you can go to the next page with the signatures just to see who all signed up. And when you scroll there, affirmation of receipt of hand-delivered notification for and in support of accessory dwelling unit. So I think that's says something good for the neighbors. And I think that concludes my presentation. I hope that you like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Kupiec, could you please introduce yourself?
There you go, Mr. Kupiec. You're able to speak now.
Great, thank you. I'm Bob Kupiec, principal at Kupiec Architects. Bob and I have been working on this project for quite a while, and I hope you do like it. I think we've kind of made our best effort to create a facade on the street that has, that's appropriate, balanced with the neighborhood, and has some architectural interest that will be a plus for the residential fabric that's there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments or emails, Ted?
So this is Ellen Kokinda. In terms of, just as a reminder for how to make oral public comment, if you're a member of the public and you would wish to speak, you raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon as shown on the screen, and I will call on you. At this moment, I do not see any members of the public wishing to speak. Actually, well, I just want to let you know, it looks like the owner, Ann Tozier, is here, but because it's your item, that you wouldn't generally comment, you wouldn't participate in public comment, but I can go ahead and when it's time for questions, just to let the board know that I will unmute the owner in case you have any questions for her as well. So Ms. Tozier, if you could just hang tight. Otherwise, I don't see any members of the public wishing to speak, so I'm going to hand it over to Ted if there was any written public comment.
This is Ted Hamilton. We do have one written email from Philip Labey of 220 Santa Rosa Place in support of the proposed deck. And that was all the written public comment.
Thank you. I have another question to staff too. Being that it's an ADU, are we allowed to comment on it? What is our jurisdiction or purview in terms of what we could say about this project?
Right. So that's a very good question, Mr. Chair. The board is limited, obviously, in its scope to comment on. Actually, I have a question. This looks like it's a modification to allow the front deck. That's interesting. I think you can comment on the deck. I believe the ADU is following the guidelines for. Well, there are no longer any guidelines. Oh, sorry. This is Matthew Azoma speaking. I'm the planning technician for design review, and I'm just reviewing, letting the board know that, yeah, it looks like the front, you can comment on the deck if that requires the modification. The ADU is not on the table for review at this time.
All right, thank you, Matthew. All right, so I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Anyone have any questions? Do I just go down the names, or does anyone? How do we want to do this, Ted? Or
so this is Ellen Kokinda. Thank you, Chair Miller. Just to make it easiest, I think it's best if everyone turns off their webcams, and if they have a question, then they turn their webcam on and they turn on their audio, and then that helps Chair Miller know who wishes to speak. And then Mr. Miller, you would then call on them. So it's helpful, again, just as a reminder, to turn on your webcam when you have a question, and then turn on your audio, and Mr. Chair will call on you. And yes, if you need to, you can always kind of pop in and ask for permission to speak. So I will give it back to you. And again, I just want to, Ms. Tozier, I have you unmuted, so you are also available to answer board members' questions. So, Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you. Looks like Fred, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a few. These are the first couple to staff. Senate Bill 13, I finally downloaded the entire bill and has been reviewing it. And this may be to Matthew, is this now in play? Senate Bill 13 has been passed and is what we have to pay attention to, is that correct?
Is this referring to the change in ADU law from the first of the year? Is that?
Yes, this is Senate Bill 13. As far as I know, it's gone into play, correct?
So there was a changeover in January. I'm not confident.
I think this was it. Okay.
There was a changeover in January. It took away a lot of local jurisdictions' ability to mandate styles. So a lot of the processes that staff had set up using the previous ADU law kind of went out the window. So we are in a position now where we don't have a lot of we have even less jurisdiction over ADUs, but in this case, because there's a modification required, the deck does require positive comments to go to the staff hearing officer for the review of the encroachment.
So essentially, our action today is just for the staff hearing officer. Once we make our comments, it will not be coming back to us. Is that correct?
That is something I'll have to check on. This is my first time dealing with a modification since this changeover with ADUs, but I can get that answer for you. I can even email city attorney right now and see if I can get a response, but at the very least I can get you information at a later date.
Yeah, that probably would help. If we make a motion, we'll need to know whether it's coming back or not. And then my final question to staff, did anybody from staff actually go out and look at this project, look at this house?
Mr. Chair, that's a really good question. It is not typical for staff for these types of projects to do a site visit. That's typical for DART and other things that go to Planning Commission. For staff hearing officer, it's not as much of a practice. So I do not believe that a site visit was conducted by staff.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chair, and then Mr. Sweeney, just to let you know, generally, whoever is the case planner for the modification will go out on site and is required to do a staff or is required to do a site visit. But in terms of prior to design review, that generally doesn't happen. It's usually part of the completeness process. So we wouldn't do it at the concept stage, but whoever is assigned this modification, which probably may or may not have happened just yet, eventually they will do a site visit and report back to the staff hearing officer. But the staff that are here today have not gone out for a site visit.
Thank you. And then one question for the applicant on the drawings. Could we go to the front elevation where the balcony shows? Please.
No, yeah. So not the cover sheet, but sheet A2.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. As best I can tell, is that a wood band that's just below the deck and railing?
Yes.
And that's the wood band that we see wrap around each side. If you go to at the east elevation,
correct.
We'll see that same wood band.
Top and bottom.
Okay.
It's a 2x6.
Okay. And then if you could go back to the front elevation, one additional question. Am I reading that correctly? Are there two light fixtures to each side of the sliding glass doors on the balcony?
Yeah. Yes, wall sconces.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a picture of what those look like?
I don't have that, but so we need to select that. We would
Do they
have them
meet-
as downlights for sure, so we would.
Okay, and I assume then they meet the dark sky requirements?
Correct.
Yeah.
Make sure of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
So anyone else have a question? Bring your camera on and unmute yourself. Anyone else had any questions? I have a couple. What's the, I guess I'm just going to ask this. I guess it's not my purview, but what's the plate height of the ADU? What do you propose for the plate height of the ADU?
It's 9-1,
So you've got a 9-foot plate height for the second story
correct.
that we cannot have any kind of comment on. Is that correct, staff?
Can you repeat the question,
yes, I
Mr.
believe-
Chair? I apologize. I was emailing the city attorney.
I asked the designer what the plate height of the second story was. He says it's 9 feet, but we do not have any jurisdiction over that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I have another question regarding, there seems to be a deck in the backyard as well. I mean, when you go up to the ADU, you come up to like a little deck area. Is that correct, Robert?
There's a deck in the side yard next to the ADU entry.
Yes.
and,
Now,
yeah, you zoom in on the bottom
Now the-
elevation. Or do
yeah.
you want the plan?
Well, what's the, let's see, I want to look at the, let's see, the west elevation.
Yes.
Is there a, well, okay, the entry into the upstairs ADU, where's that?
That's the little stairway that you see going up, just to the right of that. No, go back to the right there.
Oh, so
There's
that
3
deck, is
steps.
on the- oh, I got it. So it's on the first floor.
That's
the
the
deck.
front door.
Oh, okay. I got it. Thank you. All right. I couldn't figure that out. All right. All right. Those are my only questions. Joe, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. On your front, go to the north, go to the south elevation, front elevation, please.
Yeah.
I've noticed that basically the existing house has a hip roof and you have put a little bit of a hip, but mostly a gable roof on the second story. And I understand we're not supposed to not comment about it, but if I put my hand over the ADU and ignore it, your addition looks like it's overbearing for the neighborhood, overbearing over what was existing there. And I'm a little afraid that your horizontal siding that you have added to your existing house on
Wait. Joe, is this a question or can you wait till comments?
This is a question.
Okay.
I will turn it into a question right now.
Okay.
Okay, I'll turn it into an answer.
Have you decided to tie that house into the existing house into the fence, or do you want to tie the house into the addition?
Oh, tie the house into the addition, and the main reason for the partial or the combined hip gable is the owner loves volume ceilings. They have another house that has that, and to put a hip volume in there was going to be lopsided. So we paid homage to the hip roof by having the wrap back on all 4 sides, as well as the hip over the back half of the house, and excuse me, over the stairs on the left. So it's a combination of the two, but there was a hip combination gable roof just on the entry down there too. You can see by the steps to the lower right side. So I mean, it wasn't like they hadn't done it prior. So it's trying to get a nice interior space and pay homage to the exterior.
I'll say my comments too in a few minutes. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, I will go to comments. Joe, you have the table. Or
Yes.
floor.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry, Mr. Motisha. At this point, I would like to ask the applicants to go ahead and mute themselves and to turn off their webcam, because this is the time for the board, I guess, to provide comments. And
Thank you. Yeah, real quickly, the owner, did you said there's someone that wanted to speak? Is this a good time for them to speak, or do you want them to wait?
Ms. Tozier, if you would like to unmute yourself, you can at this, you've been able to unmute yourself if you wish to speak.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to quickly thank you all, just to let you know that the owner here at the meeting attending it, and that we appreciate you hearing our project. That's pretty much what I wanted to say. And sorry that the other photos that Bob had gathered didn't come through. It shows a lot of different deck styles in our neighborhood, and actually some of the nicer looking homes have them. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say is thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just to let you know, I do have a email into the city attorney's office. Hopefully I'll hear back by the time you guys are ready for your motion. But for the time being, I ask that you keep your comments relegated to the deck, which is currently your purview.
All right, thank you. Okay, to comments. Joe, would you like to speak?
Okay, I'll continue where I left off. Could we show the elevation of the south elevation? Not this one, the one without all the dimensions on it.
Now remind you, the only thing you have a purview over is the deck. So.
Correct. Correct. Okay, now the proposed. Now south elevation. Oh, that was.
Mr. Motisha, I believe that is the south elevation. If the applicant wants to jump on and direct me to a different page in here.
No, without all the dimensions and all the lines on it. Just the building.
I don't think there is any.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay, well, to me, okay. For the neighborhood and for the houses in the area, it looks like you've added something that is an add-on to the existing house. And I commented before that I think that is happening because you put the the horizontal wood siding on the existing house to the east of the front door. And you tied that into the fence rather than tying that horizontal siding into the house. I think it would fit the neighborhood better and fit the addition of the garage and the deck. And the deck, I define only the deck, would look more in keeping with our guidelines if you lowered that horizontal siding on the existing house down to a level that doesn't make it look like the addition is an add-on. That's my comment. And I would respect a comment from Robert. Thank you.
So just to clarify, your comments more pertaining to the horizontal siding at the deck level, not for the whole house?
No, horizontal siding at the existing house. You raised.
Okay, got it. We could, yeah, I dragged it up to have it under that window. That's a bedroom window. But maybe it drops down to the height of the fence. So it's kind of a horizontal band that continues around. That make more sense to you? I can't hear you guys. What's going on?
Joe, do you have something to say, or are you still contemplating?
I still think that horizontal siding on the existing house is way too high.
Okay,
Makes
yeah,
one half of the house look like it doesn't fit the additional part of the house. And I would like your comment too.
it's, we picked an area that we thought it was, a good height for it, but it's flexible. I think it could go like a foot lower. I don't know if that's enough to satisfy you. It could be at a wainscot height, although then it's not as noticeable.
I don't think it needs to be as noticeable, even lower than a wainscot.
So are you suggesting that maybe we don't do it over by the entry? It's too much?
Let me interrupt you, Joe. Sorry to break this up, but I'm not sure. Is this
Okay, I'm finished. That's
okay?
exactly my comment. Thank you.
Jan came up next. Jan, do you have something you'd like to say?
I just want to add a comment that I do not see a problem with the deck encroachment into the front yard, and I would be able to support this slight modification.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Fred, do you have something to say?
Yes, and I would suggest, Mr. Chair, as we do like we did at our normal meetings, that allow all of us to have our comments first and have the applicant make notes, and then they can respond to just respond to our comments. That's much more helpful rather than a dialogue back and forth. It gets a little sideways sometimes. I want to go to a bigger picture. One of the challenges with this house and what they're proposing with respect to the deck and its location is it's looking straight across, I believe, to 130 Santa Rosa Place. And as you know, we just approved a complete tear down and remodel for that site that will have a 2-story component. As you recall, that had a flat roof configuration. It had a second floor deck, which we originally, when it was presented, was going to face into Santa Rosa Street. It's a corner lot. And we had them screen that out. They're using horizontal wood band as part of their architectural language. And that deck was made to go on the other side towards the ocean. So you're going to have in that neighborhood, right on this block, you have the house immediately west of this house that has a 2-story element and exterior deck, as pointed out by the applicant. Straight across the street, you will be going to have a 2-story house. And I believe that element has a staircase with vertical light wells that will look directly at this deck and the sliding glass doors. It will probably look up a little because I think there's an elevation differential between this house and the one directly across the street. So I'm not sure if the applicant and owner realize that ADU is going to be looking straight into the second floor of the new house that's going to be built directly across the street that has a second floor. They may want to look at those drawings just to satisfy themselves about privacy issues or view issues going nowhere. I, like Jan, could support the deck in itself as presented, but I also appreciate Joe's issue about how the deck is nestled into the first floor of the garage. One of the things, I'm going to put this, how can I do that? Right up to the screen. Whoops, not sure how the camera works. One of the interesting things about that window configuration coming out of the ADU is that it's going to take a lot of sun. And I assume you can maybe solve that by having solar glass. But a methodology is to bring the portion of the hip roof across right over the top of the sliding glass doors. That makes an eyebrow. And then below on the garage, either a gabled in, where the deck nestles into a gabled in, and provides a breakup, which I think is what Joe is concerned about how the deck sits on the garage, or a hip eyebrow that mimics the entry to the east side. That's down in here, I think. I'm not sure if people can see that. That might help break this mass up and be a little bit more to scale. I think the issue that's bothering Joe and it's bothering me is the scale of how this deck itself sits on the garage. So that would be my concern. But if staff tells us we can only say yes for the deck or no for the deck with no other comments, then I would say yes for the deck. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Lisa?
Yes, let's see, no audio. Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I agree with Jan's comment that I find the deck in the current configuration supportable, and yes, that'll be my contribution.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
I have a question, a comment again.
Yes, Joe. Also, before you speak, though, I'd like to invite you as a suggestion based on what Fred said, that when you do make your comments, to not ask the designer applicant questions, because that opens it up to a discussion. So you might want to avoid that, and then we'll just say your comments and then have them speak later.
Very good, I will.
Thank you.
I think you misunderstood me. I have no problem with the decks. I have no problem with the decks in anywhere. What I have a problem with is the horizontal siding on the existing house, south elevation, and it's too high. It makes the rest of the house look very massive and a massive addition to a single part of the house that was left. But I think the horizontal siding on the existing house that was added, and I think it was commented that was a bathroom window, that horizontal wood siding should be down to the height that it is on the second story balcony on the same elevation. Finished.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, I'd like to say a few things here about this project. Personally, I can. Oh, Robert, do you have something to say? Yes.
I was just going to step in and say I support the deck in the way that it's been proposed. So that's just my.
Thank you. So have we heard from everyone who wanted to comment on the board? Okay, so a couple things I want to say about this. This is very interesting. I would like the owner to hear this. I want the architect to hear this and our board to hear this. My impressions of what this is. The single family design board, and Fred can correct me if not. Oh, Jonathan, do you want to say something? And welcome back, by the way. You're muted. I can't hear you. There you are.
I support the deck the way it is.
Thank you. The single family design board was created based on a brouhaha that occurred in the Mesa from a particular client who had this house built that kind of towered over the adjacent neighborhood. And it created such an uproar with the neighborhood that we were birthed from that episode. Now we're in a position now where we can't even comment about certain aspects of the bulk and scale of these accessory dwelling unit because it's now outside of the purview because of it being an accessory dwelling unit. So that kind of is a little disconcerting. And the fact that the plate height is 9 feet. So I'd invite the architects to be a little more sensitive to the neighborhood. And if I was to make a comment, and this is off the record, it should be an 8-foot plate just to be a little more sympathetic, because you are setting a precedence with the neighborhood. This is a kind of a diagram. I went out to the site, and this is kind of what the experience I had with your addition with the neighbor next door with the massing of these two second-story elements being abutted to each other. So otherwise, I can approve the deck, and I just want to, and I'm disappointed. I really am in terms of the way that this has been added to this house. I think it's going to open the floodgates for a lot of other developments like this that kind of go in the face of what we're trying to achieve. But that's just my observations. So anyway, with that being said, we need to make a motion. Who wants to make a motion on this project?
Okay, so I would like to make a motion in support of this slight modification to the deck in the front yard setback.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary Ternovskaya, Commission Secretary. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James. Vice Chair James.
Yes.
Okay, we lost audio for her. This is Ellen Kirkenda. I'm gonna try to get in touch with her.
Okay, Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Okay, to go to, is everyone okay? Do we need to take a break or should I proceed to the next project? Hearing nothing.
Continue.
Hello? You're good? Okay. So our next project is a new item for concept review. It's the address is 222 Gibraltar Road. Being a new project, I'll read it into the record. It's a proposal to construct a new 6,957 square foot level single unit residence on a vacant lot. Proposal includes 1,823 square feet at the basement level, 4,243 square feet at the ground level, and 890 square feet at the second level. The project also includes 1,071 cubic yards of grading, a new pool, new decking, and green roofs. The proposal total of 6,957 square feet of development, of which 50% of the basement is excluded from the calculation. On a 4-acre lot located on the Hillside Design District is 90% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation, grading, and hillside design and slope lot findings. Do we have someone to represent this project?
Hello, Dan Weber here.
Hi, Dan.
And we've also got Jeff April from my office.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to, if it's all right with you, give a very quick introduction to the project and then turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to walk through the plans for you.
Sure.
So this property is up on Gibraltar Road. It's a beautiful property with great views and a really strong sense of nature and really strong sense of being part of that mountain environment. The house that sat on this property was a big Spanish style house that was 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, and it burned down in the tea fire. The house that was there was typical Spanish white stucco, red tile. It did not have a strong relationship to its context. It was a 4-level house. What we're doing is we're rebuilding on the exact same site, and we're endeavoring to do a house that's much more sensitive to its surroundings, lower set, hunkered into the hillside, and has a strong sense of place and a very calm presence on the site. One more thing I want to add real quick before I have Jeff go through the plans. It's a little bit bittersweet for us to be here today. We were supposed to have this hearing about 6 weeks ago before our lives were turned upside down. So while we appreciate being here, this has really been a struggle for us to have this kind of delay, not only on this project, but multiple projects that are all caught in the bottleneck of design review. So for a small company like ours, 6 weeks of delay on multiple projects means 6 weeks of revenue that we are missing for multiple projects. So moving through this expeditiously, quite literally, could be the difference of surviving and not surviving, keeping our staff and having to lay people off. So I would really urge the board, as well as the planning staff that's listening, to find some creative ways to, not only for us, but for other future projects, reduce the amount of time that it takes to move through the design review process. That might mean raising the threshold on what projects are triggered to go to design review. It might mean reducing the processing timelines, or finding some ways to provide administrative reviews for more projects, or other creative ideas. What I would like to request of you today is that, assuming that you like our project, which I really hope you do, that we incorporate your feedback, and we'd like to be continued on to PDA and final review in one hearing. And the other thing we'd really like to do is be able to submit for building permits prior to that hearing, so that we don't incur further multiple weeks or months of delay while we're waiting for our design review approvals. Looking forward to your feedback. We'd love to get your comments and incorporate anything that you've got into the design as we go forward to the next stage.
Thank you, Dan.
Over to you, Jeff.
Okay. There was an additional exhibit submitted that was the previous residence at this property. And this is it. And if you can scroll down one more page to page 2, that would be the floor plan of that PDF. So I'll take you on a tour of the site when in our drawings, but I wanted to take a moment to have everyone see on the board what the previous project was. On the site, it was over 5,000 square feet above ground, 4-level, sort of split house rambling around the site. A broken up into a bunch of rooms, Spanish-style house on the hillside. This property, this subdevelopment, it's a private drive that serves about, this particular drive serves 4 houses. This is the last city lot before county land up on Gibraltar. So it's above, it's up in the Cielito neighborhood, very high up. It has a ton of views to the west to the east and to the south, which I think the proposed project takes advantage of. Coming back to this floor plan, you can see that it has a ton of different broken up rooms, from a living room to an entry to dens, garages, family rooms, kitchens, dining rooms, all sort of separated and rambling through the site. If you go to page 3 of this PDF, you'll see the exterior elevations. So the top elevation is the auto court level. And the bottom elevation is the east elevation, which is the most impactful elevation. The site facing east does not face very many public right-of-ways at all, no roads. It's very high up above mountain drives, so you don't get any sight lines or views that way. But you can just see that it sort of starts on the right-hand side of the screen, starts really high, and then it ends up really low on the left-hand side of the screen. In the middle, there's a split level right there. The site, if you go to page 1 of this PDF, in order for the house to achieve those levels, you can see the general contours of the site that was there before. And the way that the house managed the elevation grade in the hillside was sensitive at that moment of design, but after the house burnt down, the site was raised and leveled out in a way that made a really flat pad with really jarring transitions to the hillside you see to the right-hand side of the screen, which is true north, and a really steep drop off on the northern or the page north part of the property, going down into the hillside. Dan, did you have any further comments on the previous design?
Nope, I think that does a pretty good job of it.
Okay, we can go to the PDF that we prepared. One page down. If we zoom into the vicinity map, So as you can see on the vicinity map, the parcel in question is accessed from Gibraltar Road via a private drive. There's a neighbor immediately to the north. You cannot see that neighbor from the parcel, nor can that neighbor see the parcel from their house. If they walked to the southernmost portion of their property, they would be overlooking our parcel and our building envelope by, I don't know, 40 feet more, 50 feet. It's pretty high and steep. The parcel immediately south, it's actually southeast of the property. They live there full time and they cannot see this parcel or this building pad at all from any location within their developed area. Something important to note that you'll see on the site plan and the survey coming up is this development came with pre-existing building envelope constraints, of which we have proposed to keep fully intact, no revisions to the building envelope. So siting the building was already relatively predetermined, and all infrastructure will remain in that building envelope. The last thoughts on this are immediately to the west of the property. It's a canyon that dips down far and then rises on the other side. There's a pink Spanish house over there, and then Gibraltar Road. There are two locations on Gibraltar Road where you can peek that palm tree that you see the shadow of on the south end of the building pad. So those are 2 points where you can, if you're driving north on Gibraltar, you'll be able to see the south sort of moment of the house, but from all other points of access and all other parcels, it's basically invisible to the neighbors. Okay. We can go to the next page. I believe it's site photos. And we can look at the whole page. Yes, so this is the photos of the site in its existing and current condition. The photo on the top left, you'll see some wooden stairs. Those were placed after the Tea fire and after the excavation of the previous house, or demolition and raising. The top step of those wood steps is the level of the previous auto court. So you can see that we're now entering the site off of the private drive. There's a significant drop off between 8 and 12 feet, depending on where you are on the site. A site that used to be flat or used to be a sloping hillside has now been raised flat. The picture all the way to the right in the top row is stepped back as far north on the site as I can, embedded into up against the hillside, looking near due south across the building envelope out at that palm tree. Again, that is the palm tree that is visible from Gibraltar in 2 locations. If the bottom left-hand photo is a photo looking to the east, so you can see the mountains meeting the coastline, and then straight south are the Anacapa Islands, or the Channel Islands. 1 page down.
Mr. Chair, this is Matthew Ozomas. I'd just like to remind everyone, including the applicant team, that we asked that everyone, if for the sake of time, limits their presentation to 10 to 15 minutes. And I just wanted to get that on everyone's radar as this moves forward.
Great. I will zoom through this. These are adjacent properties. The Gibraltar neighborhood, there's a lot of varied sort of Spanish style, some pink, some yellow, some white. Everything is shielded from the road. Everything is accessed via private gates. Continue. Next page. There we go. So this is the site plan with the aerial. The light blue that you see on the building pad is our building envelope, and this is our site plan. So one of the biggest things that we are trying to accomplish here in our site plan is setting the building in a way that there is no indication of a single form that's over 1 story in elevation. Our main intent is to have the sloping hillside to the north flow over the main living space with a vegetated roof. So the hillside looks like it comes down and carries onto the roof of the building, which is an environmentally sensitive, works tier 3 stormwater, and also is helps the upper neighbor not view a tile, a gravel, or a PVC membrane roof from above, but instead sees a naturalized roof setting. The second story volume is the square that you see right here that houses bedrooms. The guests enter and they go through a stairwell down to the main level as it faces the ocean. And then the garage is at the south end of the site under the main living space. You can go to the next page. The basement is subterranean. We're showing a garage and mechanical room and a stair. It's pulled deep into the site so that we don't have any of these accessory uses or parking uses visible on any of the exterior elevations. You can go up the next page. So the main level of the house is about 4,000 square feet, and it comprises of, in this plan, we have 2 guest bedrooms, an office, TV room, which is Project West. It's actually true north. It's in the hillside. And then Project East, which would be on the right-hand side of the page, we have an open living, kitchen, dining arrangement. Items that you will notice is that we pulled the house a little bit closer to the private drive, and that moved it away from the edge of hillside that faces down to East Mountain Drive. So we're really trying to pull the house away from any exposed edge and keep it embedded into the natural contours that are at the site currently. There are very limited glazing opportunities facing west, which is the public facing, which is the only place that the public can see it, where we're focusing glazing on east, which is towards the mountains, and south, which is towards the ocean. If you continue one more page. The second floor plan is just the master bedroom. There's an auto court up there as well that serves for the entry for guests, where they can park and descend down a staircase, almost like an experiential staircase going down, like a James Turrell exhibit in a way, to the entry of the house. And again, here you can sort of see the vegetated roof coming down from the hillside and sloping out, so that there is a real call to the naturalized environment here and trying to stay away from artificial roofing materials. We can go to the elevations. Next page. This is the additional roof plan. Next page. One more. I believe that we have hand rendered elevations. So these are the two, this is the south elevation and the west elevation. So on the west elevation, you'll notice that even though in the project description, this was classified as a 3-level house, in accordance with the Hillside Design Guidelines, we've really stepped back all of the massing so that there's never an apparent moment of a 2-volume mass. Exterior materials are a warm colored, not cool, warm colored sandblasted concrete with a smoother aggregate lid, and then the vegetated roof to really feel like this core shell of the building is rooted in place, like you'd see, boulders and all the rock outcroppings when you go up the San Ysidro trailhead. It's important to notice again that on the west elevation, we're really trying to minimize a lot of glazing openings and opportunity for openings, since that can be seen from Gibraltar. On the south elevation, each of these steps, so the basement to the middle main level to the upper level, it's probably a horizontal distance on site of 40 to 50 feet per elevation. Next page. One more page. And now the top elevation you'll see is the second floor. So when you're the upper neighbors, when they're looking down at the house, this is be the only elevation they were going to be able to perceive. Otherwise, they're going to see vegetated roof. And if you go down to the lower elevation, this is the east elevation where you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, we have our living kitchen dining with operable glazing. And then on the right side of the screen, we have our office and then the master bedroom above. That oak tree is existing. That is on the right-hand side of the screen, as is the palm tree. And we're trying to be sensitive to both the height limit here, which I think was 35 feet, and keep it really low, and underneath that with all the massing scaled back to the hillside. Dan, was there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think the previously designed house had some tall elements that pushed right out to the edge of the hill in order to capture that most prominent position. And we've really made efforts to step back away from the hill and put the mass of the house consistent with the topography, which steps up the hill. So as the hill steps up, our house steps up and back so that the house respects the landscape and gives prominence to the natural experience.
That's all I think we have to say.
All right, thank you. Before we go into public comment, I just wanted to respond to Dan's comment about the struggles, because we're all going through it. You're not the only one. I'm in my own business myself, and I got sick last week and I had no work. And so it's been a struggle for all of us. So this is kind of a team player thing, because we're all trying to figure it all out. So we all have to just hang in there and try to do the best we can. So I understand your frustration. But with that being said, I'll bring it back. Do we have any public comment or emails?
So, Mr. Chair, Ellen Kokenda, I would just like to ask anybody who's attending the webinar if they could raise their hand with the hand icon, and I will unmute you. And it doesn't appear that anyone wishes to speak on this item, so I'll give it back to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the board. Does the board have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ted.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to confirm that there is no written public comment that we received for the project.
All right, thank you. So any questions from the board?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about the green roof and what sort of, if you've run it by fire, or what the current thinking is about it and what you're planning on planting.
I'll take that one, Jeff. The building code allows green roofs, but surprisingly, the municipal code has a section that limits the usage of green roofs. So we're very aware of that, and we are working with the fire department to provide a roof that complies to the building code requirements for high fire areas. And we've retained a really great landscape architect for this project that has a ton of experience in completing fire-resistant vegetative roofs. So we're confident we're going to be able to get that achieved. If you guys were able to give us some reinforcement that from a design review perspective, a green roof is desirable, that would definitely help our argument. We think it's a no-brainer from every point of view, for water quality and treatment, for sustainability, to provide more plant life, or to reduce the visual impacts, and it complies to the building codes. So we'd love your support on working with the fire department on getting that approved. In terms of the planting types, you will see next time we come back to you a landscape plan which proposes a plant mix for those green roofs. So we don't have that done yet, but the overriding goal is that it blends into the native plants that are part of that environment.
Mr. Sweeney.
I would like to add.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to one thing in response to that as well, is that it's our goal to make sure that the ground level meadow area and the roof are not like there's no discernible difference between the two of those, so that when you're looking from above, you're like, oh, look at that green roof. That just looks like AstroTurf. That's not the intent here, because that's not solving the problem that we're trying to solve. So providing that landscape that blends in with the actual ground cover is important and paramount to us.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, Brian. I'm going to suggest that, given the fact this is our first meeting like this, we're trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And to speed it up, it might be helpful if you, as the chair, just went down the list of names alphabetically.
Okay.
And ask and just say, Sweeney, do you have comments or questions?
Sure.
Ziegler, whatever. That way, we don't have to sit here and wait for somebody to decide. Just go.
Good
I
point.
think that will move the meeting along.
Yes.
But I will go to my questions. There's 1,071 cubic feet of grading. Will there be any soil leaving the site, or are you going to regrade that onto the site? How does that work?
You know, we have since adjusted this to have about a 500 cubic yard delta between cut and fill on site. And in working with our civil engineer that we've just engaged and the landscape architect, they're confident that they're going to be able to potentially balance this on site, as there is the eastern portion of the site has unretained hillsides. We don't know if we can get to full zero, but it will not be 1,000 cubic yards of cut, meaning export. It at the worst case scenario, we would be exploring something like 500 cubic yards of export.
And then I was up there yesterday on Gibraltar, and I also went down a mountain drive to kind of look up the hill. The driveway that goes down to the Mediterranean house is just above this one. That's the shared driveway that will continue on down. And I'm assuming the fire department will require that to be asphalt. Is that correct?
It is currently asphalt. The private drive is currently asphalt, and
there's
I'm
also
unaware
an existing turnaround at the right below our
right
house.
before the bottom house. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an existing hammerhead.
And then I noticed on your roof plans, the best I could tell, you have a location for future solar panels. But then there was another image in the packet that I looked at down at the tail end of the sheets that had an image coming it was a nocturnal image with light coming out of a light well. What is that, or is that nothing?
I would like to clarify that. It's not an uplight of light coming out of a stairwell. If you go towards the end of the package, that is the entry from the auto court going down into the front entry, the last page. So this is the entry as you go down. So there's no uplighting involved, but there is glass on the interior of that for the door. So ambient light will fill that area, but it's not lit in a way that is out of compliance with the dark sky ordinance. And this render was made for effect for the owner to get them excited about this experience walking into the light. You know, humans are phototropic. You want to walk into the light. We made an experiential render that sort of sold the idea, but with the light well, or the entry well here, is to be in full compliance with dark sky ordinance, no uplighting, none of that.
Okay, thank you. If you could go to the rendered elevations, any one of them, the west is fine. You indicated that the vertical wall elements were going to be concrete. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the way it's rendered, there appears to be some elements that kind of poke out or go in. What am I looking at there, or what are you suggesting?
So what our intent is rather than make this feel like a polished concrete structure, our intent is to actually sandblast the concrete so that the cement will dissipate and then it will leave back some of the aggregate. So it's not intended to be a smooth finish. It's intended to have texture to it, to have exposed aggregate, and there would be a color base in it to bring it into that warm spectrum, as opposed to concrete being cool.
So it would be closer to the native Lacumba Creek Santa Barbara sandstone. Is that?
You are correct, but without not using sandstone, using the colorations and the tone and the warmth of sandstone, but using it in a sandblasted concrete.
And then above that, you have a horizontal stripe that in the renderings appear a little yellow. Is that a similar material treated just colorly different?
It would be a similar material, but it would be a fine aggregate concrete. It would not be a large aggregate concrete, and that would not be sandblasted. So it would have a slightly more refined look to it, but it would be the same coloration tone. It might be a tone on tone difference of color, but it's same sort of concrete feeling, warm Santa Barbara sandstone.
Okay. And then if you could, last question, if you could go to the south elevation, the south rendered elevation, please. Yeah, where it shows the garage, the dip down into the garage, there is a flat element to the right towards the little chair that's sitting out under the palm tree.
Yes.
Do you have to have protective railings, or is that a planter or whatever, so that nobody can walk over to that edge and go down into the driveway? What are your thoughts?
We are working with the landscape architect to create planters that are deep enough. You know, we're trying to go 4 or 5 feet deep on some surface level planters here to avoid having to use railings wherever possible. If you look at this elevation on the second floor, that seems to be a location where there would be a level, or over on the bedroom side, that seems to be a location where railings would be probably the location where we would have to use them. We could get away with planters everywhere else. And the clients have asked, they don't have a taste for glass railings. So we're working with them to explore what other options are that are low impact.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
All right, Jan Farrell, do you have anything to say?
Well, just a comment that I like how this home blends with the natural topography of the hillside. And I think it's very minimalistic as far as impacting your neighbors. And so I like it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Matisha? Comment?
Mr. Motisha, your audio is on. Oh, actually, he just turned it off.
Okay, how about I go to Robert Richards and see if we can get Joe later.
No comment.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Robert Richards?
All right, I'm here. I am in support of the project. I think that it fits nicely with the context of that area. It's a big improvement over the previously proposed project up there. I appreciate the way it's been sited on the hillside. I think the choice of materials is appropriate for the hillside. The green roof would be awesome for it to blend into the area. So look forward to seeing a landscape plan in the future, but I think at this level, I'm in general support of the project.
Thank you. Mr. Ziegler, any comment?
Yeah, I would support it. I like it. And I happen to like contemporary. And so this is something that really would work for me.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. My only comment is I think I can support it as well. I wouldn't even call this contemporary. I'd call it more like organic architecture, because it basically is vanishing into the side of the hillside.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing how it looks when you construct. Not only that, I'd also say that how it opens up the other architecture surrounding it, because they are all sticking up and you're kind of like floating out. So it almost gives you the feel it's an open lot. So it's going to be an interesting project. So I can support it. Now, Dan, you're requesting What were you requesting for this project?
I'd like to be sent agendized for the next hearing. I guess our ideal motion would be an indefinite continuance or PDA and final review together at one hearing.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes. I finished questions, but I didn't have a chance to make my comments.
Oh, I apologize. So
Me too.
Okay, Mr. Sweeney, please make your comments. I apologize. I thought you had.
One of the, it's kind of a question, and it may be to staff. You know, at some point, when we were working in our training sessions and working with staff prior to our switchover of staff just recently, we had requested this notion in order to speed up the process to some degree, is to have staff coming with us with a recommendation for the definition of the neighborhood, because one of the findings we have to make is compatibility with the neighborhood, and that has to be defined. I don't know that we've done that yet, so in making a motion ultimately, perhaps not today, but when we give it project design approval, we will have to define the neighborhood. And this one's a little bit of a challenge, only because the neighborhood is a whole huge hillside. And one of the things it sounds like, and I agree, we're all in agreement that the approach to this design is highly appropriate in the way that they're trying to pursue it, but it's in a neighborhood. If you drive up on Gibraltar Road and you look down, it's all filled with Spanish style homes, as the one that burned down.
Right.
So I think when we make our motion, we need to be fairly clear, in case for some reason it ever gets appealed, that we made a decision where the neighborhood is. So that's just a cautionary comment when we get to motion. With regards to green roof issue, just to share with Mr. Weber and Mr. April, we have on several occasions made the plea to, through our comments at this board, through staff to the fire department, that they reconsider their adversity to having green roofs, because the county of Santa Barbara, and in this case, it's literally the next property over, approves green roofs. So I'm not quite sure. We've never heard back from the fire department. Nobody from the fire department, nobody from the staff has ever gotten back to us of sharing why green roofs under certain conditions with certain planning materials, et cetera, aren't approvable. So I agree with the applicant. It's frustrating. We really haven't, in my view, hadn't gotten a lot of help one way or the other. So I would encourage the applicant to pursue what they've outlined to get to the green roof issue. I'm in the go around of project design approval. I'd like to be able to see the color samples of the stone, or excuse me, the concrete, and maybe a photograph or something of how they're describing it, because it's a little hard to tell in the renderings. And I kind of understand where you're coming from, but I just would be interested in looking at, and also interested in looking at exterior lighting, landscape lighting, or nighttime lighting. Some of these homes that we've looked at where they have high profiles, and this would be a site that does have a high profile because you can see it from several points along Gibraltar Road and from across the canyon to the Riviera. You can look right at these things, and some glow at night like big diamonds and some don't. So it'd be interesting to see the lighting pattern that would be proposed both on the building and in any landscape design that we're going to be shown to. I think what Mr. Weber is looking for is a motion that would indicate we're ready to consider project design approval at the next appearance. And so if that's the feeling of the board, then that ought to be in the motion so that staff clearly understands that's what we would expect when it returns. If we're not, we then should also make that kind of comment that if we're not ready to give it project design approval, we should share that with the applicant and make comments as to why that wouldn't be the case. So one way or the other, it needs to be clear So, because once we get project design approval, that's pretty much it. This project gets approved.
That's true.
May I clarify my request?
Well, hold on, Dan. Hold that thought. Let me get Lisa in. Lisa, do you need something you want to say?
Oh, well, I had made a question, but I just wanted to add a supportive comment to follow what Jan and all my other colleagues said. I think it's an exciting project, and you've been really sensitive to the grading issue, and that the materials are really compatible with the nature and the surrounding hillside. So I'm very supportive.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, Dan, what did you want to say?
Yes, so to clarify, what I'm looking for is under normal circumstances, if you guys liked this concept, we would be looking for PDA approval at the next hearing. That's typical. What I'm suggesting that's maybe atypical is that we be agendized for PDA and final approval. And the reason is because for the last 6 weeks, while we've been waiting for you guys to get the hearings up and running, we've been sitting on our hands. And in order for our client to authorize us to bill her for further development of the project, we need to be progressing the drawings forward and working on the architectural detailing and materials that will be required for final approval. So it takes a really long time for us to do this submittal and then have the staff do this completedness review. I mean, sometimes it's taken 2 months. And if we don't know that we're moving towards final, we're sitting on our hands for another 2 months.
Fred, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just to follow up. So it's not unusual that we do give final and project design approval all at once. We've done that several times in the past. But what that takes is a complete landscape plan, irrigation, etc., a complete set of drawings, any readout from the fire department, so that if we're going to approve a green roof, we can do that. Because if you have to come back, then it's got to get renoticed, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can get the fire department decision made before you come back, that would be great, because that allows us just to say, yeah, we're in agreement, move forward. And anything else that staff may look at that would require action other than us, that way we can, in fact, we should be able to give you project design approval and final, but that also requires the color board, all the, that whole list that you all look at, having everything in that list, color boards, lighting fixtures, all that detail stuff is on the drawings. Then we should have a problem being able to give you final approval on the same date. But sometimes things happen with things that aren't under the control of this board, and then that trips you up.
We understand that. Thank you.
The only thing I'm concerned about, and Ellen, maybe you can fill in, is the city going to approve their roof system?
So I'm not able to answer that question, but I do want to just point out that given that we've kind of moved into the comments section, I know that you did address the applicants, but for the sake of the board, I'm just going to ask that the applicants go ahead and turn their webcams off and their microphones off. And if the board asks a clarifying question again, then you can turn them back on. But I just want to give the board a chance to comment, and I'm going to let Matthew speak to the other question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Chair Miller, the staff will route this to High Fire, the fire department, for them to review the green roof. We will receive comments back. This will be part of our completeness review. So if you are ready, as Board Member Sweeney said, to give this PDA, then you would continue it indefinitely with comments stating that it's good to go, staff do your thing, and then once it's ready for action, meets all the development standards, it can come back to you guys. This might be an excellent opportunity for us to get comments from the fire department directly regarding green roofs and get some clarifying information as well. So I can't speak to whether or not the fire department is going to approve the green roof system as proposed. I do know that they will be roped in as part of the completeness review, and that will all be sorted before it comes back here. And at the very least, we'll have some clarifying information as to why they've made the determination on green roofs.
Thank you, Matthew. So back to Dan, I think our board, I feel comfortable that we could give you final approval, but there might be a hiccup regarding that roof system. So that's the risk here.
Right, and so there's no risk right now. Sorry, let me just let me click back on. So it's very typical for us to, not very typical, but it happens frequently where we agendize things for project design and final approval. If it's on for project design approval, it means it meets all of the development standards. So if you think this is all good and you send it on to PDA, it will return to the board with or without the green roof, depending on the determination from High Fire. So are you curious as to whether or not you'd want to have another concept review if the green roof went away? Is that where your hesitation is?
Well, based on what I'm hearing is that I think our board is comfortable to give them PDA and final. They'd come back for final approval if I'm not mistaken, but with all the appropriate color board details. Yeah, but we're assuming that the city and the fire department are going to be okay with the green roof, and that's what I'm.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to give an approval today because that completeness review hasn't happened. So whether or not the green roof is acceptable, again, I cannot speak for the fire department at this time. Typically deal with ABR projects and they don't get a lot of green roofs. So I know it's been employed in some places, but I think there are some limitations on it. I'm not sure what they are. So, but yeah, if you send this off for PDA, it will return to you with an approvable design.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sweeney, you have a question or comment?
Well, a comment. I would suggest that the applicant be prepared as they go through the process with the fire department for the green roof. Be prepared if they're still trying to get to final at their next visit, be prepared to come with the alternative roof material and finish.
Very good.
That they want to see. So that way we can keep them moving without having them have to come back. We can look at it at the next review. The other thing that we should do is prepare to maybe agree today about the definition of the neighborhood. That way it's pretty clear. We don't have to spend a lot of time fooling with that at the next hearing.
Okay, thank you. So that being said, I believe we're ready to make a motion. Who would like to make a motion? Unless any other comments need to be said. Mr. Sweeney.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the board finds that the approach to this project is favorable to the neighborhood. The neighborhood being defined, the area bounded by Gibraltar Road to the west, Mountain Drive to the east, I believe it's El Cielito Road to the south, and the county line to the mountainside or north side. That the board is in a position that they will support project design approval and final approval at the next hearing if the applicant is able to resolve the issue of roof covering and that they're clear on the number of cubic yards for the grading gets resolved, that they return with the full gamut of requirements for final approval, including a complete landscape and irrigation plan and color boards, etc. And that would be, and I'm assuming this, because of the fire department issue, this will have to be a indefinite continuance to the full board. That's my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Thank you, Jan. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary Turnovskaya, Commission Secretary. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Matthew Ozomas. I have to sign off for the evening. It is the end of my workday, but I wish you luck moving forward through this. And Ted is going to be taking care of you for the rest of the meeting.
Hi, Matt. Okay, our next project is 50 Rubio Road. Do we have a representative for this project? This is a concept review. Now, I have a question. Do I have Lisa read in the minutes from our previous meeting? How do we do this?
It says new item.
Is it a new item? Oh, I stand corrected.
It says
Sorry.
new item.
Thank you, Jan. But hold on to that question because we are going to be coming to a continued item. So I need to address that. Now, Jonathan, you just came up. Do you have a question or a comment?
No.
Okay. So Jonathan Villegas is on the line. Let me read it into the record. This is a proposal for a 750 square foot addition at a first floor at an existing 1,707 square foot, two-story single unit residence with an attached 380 square foot two-car garage. Project includes a new 382 square foot raised patio with a wood trellis, proposed total of 2,840 square feet of development on a 12,361 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 71% of the required maximum floor to lot ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and sloped lot findings. So Mr. Villegas, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Jonathan Villegas, and I'm the designer and the engineer on this project.
Hi, Jonathan. So could you go through your project?
Yeah, so basically the clients wanted to add a master suite, and we are actually, so if you look at the second sheet here, so which is the site plan. So you can see the lighter gray area is where the existing house basically sits. And we're adding on an additional kind of a master suite slash expanding an office area in kind of a tiered, it's not just a two-story, but it's kind of a tiered building where it goes up and down a few steps here and there to kind of match the hillside. So from Rubio, it's on a cul-de-sac, and you can't even see most of the building that's being added on the addition because it goes down slope at that point. On the next sheet, on A1.3, you could see in the black all the areas that we are adding, and we're actually replicating part of the front facade in this office area by just extending it out towards Rubio Way. And if you look at the elevations on A2.1 and you look at the elevation, south elevation, and the proposed south elevation, you can see that we're popping out that same window at that addition. So, and then we're doing the add-on for the master suite at the same level. And that's basically it. We're getting rid of this sort of, if you look at elevation number 3, we're getting rid of this sort of funky roof with a with some glass block on this kitchen area. And so if you go back to the A1.3, you could kind of see this at the kitchen, this kind of a weird, kind of protruded, odd shape. And that was just a glass block area on the exterior, but it did face south, which faced the ocean. And so those were the views they kind of wanted to continue and encapsulate with this addition. So that's why we're putting the master suite also, so you get some views there. And we kind of staggered the addition so that way we're not losing the views from the kitchen window, but we're keeping the views at the master suite level there as well. So there's a lot kind of going on with this structure, but a lot of it was because we were constrained with some setback issues, and we didn't want to do a lot of grading on this site. And so we were raising it up so that way we don't have to do a lot of grading, and keeping everything at the same level as the dining room, because they want to be able to go out of the dining room area and use this whole new patio area. So as all one level. Otherwise, we would have stepped it down even more, but that was kind of one of the thoughts on there for that. And on the on A 2.1, we're kind of doing another kind of little pop-out window, but with a slightly different art in Spanish style to it, with some kind of wood. Like wainscoting, and then doing kind of a copper sloped roof. So if you look at elevation 2, a 2.1, so you can see that in the master bath area, that's where we're going to have actually the shower, the bathroom. And so we're kind of putting that out there as well. But again, most of this is not going to even be viewed by the street or anything, anybody on there. And then we're doing a sort of a stone facade at kind of like the floor level to kind of wrap around the whole building. So that way it makes it look a little bit more Spanish. And there's a lot of stone on site too for this building. So we'll probably match it. It's kind of like Santa Barbara stone. And that's basically it. We're adding a wood trellis to the outside of the master suite just to give some shade because it's south facing. So we're gonna, we want to be able to protect that area over there. And that's basically it for this project. I did some very rough 3D renderings. You could see on A5.1. Unfortunately, I got the site information at the last minute, so I wasn't able to really tweak the topography as much as I wanted to. But my next go around, I'm going to tweak the topography more and add more hardscape to these 3D models so you can get a better idea of what we're trying to achieve. But as you can see, the patio is going to be raised. It's probably not going to be raised that high. It looks pretty high from that perspective on A5.1, but the topography will go up a little bit higher than that. So, but that's a general idea.
Okay, thank you. So did we get any public comment or emails?
Chair Miller, this is Ellen Kokinda. I'd just like to ask anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this particular issue or agenda item to raise their hand using the hand icon, and I can call on you. I currently do not see anyone who's raised their hand. I will pass it off to Ted if there's been any written comment.
This is Ted Hamilton. I don't believe we have any written comment for the project.
All right, thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the board now for questions. Now I'm just going to read down the list of the members for expedite. So Lisa James, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Jan Farrell? Okay. Joseph Motisha?
Yes, did we? Sorry, let me get in there.
I can hear you. There you are.
Okay. Did we, I've looked at this before. Did we look at this under a different concept or a different application?
So, Jonathan, was this
Under consent? Did we look at consent in the past 3 weeks?
No.
Then why have I
Not that
looked
I'm
at
aware.
it? Why have I looked at it before and recently?
Mr. Chair, this is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
Joe, you may have, because this was scheduled to be on and then it was canceled right at the last moment. So you may remember from that action. We didn't actually look at it.
Very good. I just the one question. I don't have any questions at this time. No, I'm
okay. All right, thank you. Robert Richards. Ted, yes. Ted has something?
This is Ted. Really quickly, I just wanted to interject and say that I don't see any recent applications for this project other than the application we're currently looking at.
Thank you. Mr. Richards, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, any questions?
Yes, thank you. I have several. I was out at the site last night or yesterday afternoon and looking at that. Could you go to the elevations, please? Okay, let's go to trying to read these. The south, proposed south elevation. Okay, thank you. What is the plate height and where is finished floor on the far right element, which would be, I guess, to the west?
The finished floor is actually about where the stone wainscoting is. And then, sorry, I didn't put the elevations on there. I wanted to clean it up. But the plate height at the master is at 11.5. So they wanted to get more height out of that.
Okay, and then the window to the left of the little out bay window at the bathtub, the window to the left is at the closet, correct?
Yeah, that one is a closet window.
Okay.
There.
And then the window further to the left is existing and not being changed?
Oh, actually, no, that window that I said a closet, it's not a closet. It's actually a shower window. So that's why it's high up there.
So, but the next window to the left is not being changed. That's what it is existing?
That is the part of the addition. And so we're replicating the existing facade at that portion of the building. So we're basically extruding that out and making it the same. So.
Okay, do we have a photograph of that window that's there now?
I should, you should have some photographs. I emailed them over to Ted. There it is.
That's it, right? So it has no divided lights at the moment. Your drawing indicates divided lights. Are you doing divided lights or are you just doing single pane casement?
I think we'll do single. I think we'll do single pane. My original drawings showed that there was a bunch of divided lights, and I was eliminating them. So we'll probably, there's no divided lights on the house at all. The as-built drawings showed divided lights. We'll probably take them off. So.
Okay, thank you. Can you go back to the elevations again, please? Thank you. If we can go to, I guess it's the west elevation. Yeah, it's the west elevation has a little trellis over the windows on the, or yeah, south elevation. I'm reading it. Where am I trying to read? Yeah. So we have a south elevation and then we're going around the building. Okay, there it is, the east elevation. I guess that's it. The east elevation. So the left little window is into the bathroom, correct? That one.
Yeah, that one is going also to a shower. So
Okay, and the bottom or top of that window is about what I don't have a way to measure it. When these drawings came over, I couldn't figure it out.
yeah, those ones are at 9 feet. So
the top is at 9 feet.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
and is that a fixed piece of glass?
That one will probably be an awning window because it'll be above the shower. So that would
All right, and then the other two windows to the right of that are, let's see, I'm trying to think, there's windows in each side of the master bed. Is that the furthest to the right?
Yes, they're two. Those ones are the two to the right, and the one that is kind of between is actually at the water closet.
Okay, and so the two beside the bed, the bottom of those appear to be 2 or 3 feet off the floor, the sill.
Yes.
Okay, and so those are awnings, and then a upper window above that, or a fixed window.
We haven't really discussed it. They'll probably be fixed since we already have the casements open, but it's something to be determined. So there might be awnings. So.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, could you go to the site plan, please?
More.
There you go. Okay, the survey indicates the trees that are to the west, adjacent to the property on the west. There appears, when I was there last night, there appears to be a cluster of oaks. Or maybe they're not oaks. No, they're not oaks. They're look like fir trees or deciduous trees. Immediately inside your property line, is that right? They're kind of right in front of the bathroom window.
Yeah, we tried to avoid all the trees. You guys also should have had a complete survey of the existing conditions that I sent.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand. What I'm trying to understand is the relationship of those trees that are going to be in front of the proposed bathroom window, or the window by the tub, I guess. Those trees appear from the street, from the sidewalk, looking down, appear to block the view from the big window that's in the adjacent west neighbor's house. Do we know where that window is?
I'm not sure relative to the neighbor's house, that window.
Okay, so we don't quite know where that is yet. Okay, thank you. That's, for the moment, that's my question.
Okay, real quick.
There is a deck.
Let me say something real quick,
there is a
Jonathan.
deck. Okay.
Hold your thought. It is now 5:15. They want to be done by 6. So everyone be conscious of the time, but go on, Jonathan.
Okay.
I actually did I did an addition on the house next door back in the 90s, and they had a big stone deck that was out there. And I think those tree locations by the new master bath are basically catty corner from that deck. So there really isn't any views except for from the deck to down to that master bath area. So anyway, I don't know if that helps.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, do you have something to say?
Yeah, on the new window, if we can put that up, the picture of. My question is to the group of us, does the different design in that window from the one to the left of it bother anybody, or is it okay with the crew?
Well, let's hold that to comments. Hold that thought.
Oh, okay.
So let's go with Joe. Do you have something you needed? A question, Joe?
Yeah, just a comment of clarification. It says south elevation. That's the north elevation. We're looking at the top one is the north elevation. What we're looking at right now is the north elevation, the top one.
Sorry, I should have said looking south elevation. So you're looking south on that elevation. So.
Okay, well, it's called the north elevation.
Yeah, sorry, my bad on there.
To a set of plans, we look at the north elevation, and that's what we're looking at, not the direction that we're looking at. Sorry, that's all in my comment. They should be relabeled to practice.
Okay, take note, Jonathan.
Yes, we'll be done
All
next
right.
time.
Thank you. So I'm going to go into comments now, and I'm just going to go down the list. Personally, I have no questions at this time. Lisa James, do you have any comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Jan Farrell, do you have any comments?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Joseph Matisha.
No, I do not.
Okay. Robert Richards.
No, I don't have any comments.
Thank you. Fred Sweeney.
Yes, I have comments. With regards to the windows, this gets to Jonathan's comment. If you're going to use casement windows with no divided lights, I don't have a problem with that. I did that in my own house, and I have a Spanish style house, contemporary, and I use single light casement windows. That's perfectly fine. However, if I go around the building, if we can go back to what is the north, the convention is the north elevation. Joe, that's how we refer to it. So by convention, your south elevation is north. If I look at that elevation, I'm going to show you a drawing. See if I can get this up to the screen. Oops, how does that work? There we go. Okay. Your language, your Mediterranean style language immediately changes the minute you get to that sliding window above the bathroom. If you see my sketch, traditionally what you would use is a small square window. The other thing that I would suggest, because I know by standing up at the railing on the public sidewalk, you're going to be able to look right down into that bathroom. And I almost can bet you can look right into that bathroom through the trees from the adjacent house to the south. And so what I'm going to suggest that you consider making that little bay window a element which they call a mirador, which is basically a screened window. That came from Spain when the women were kept upstairs, wanted to be able to look outside but not be seen from the public street. They could step into a bay window type element and look through a screen, sometimes made of wood, sometimes made of wrought iron, etc. So I think that's important. The other thing that I think is that the bulk of the addition to the west or to the right of the supposed north elevation is the bulk is too big, way too big. And I think that can be achieved. The owners can still get a high volume ceiling and still get a very nice volumetric room, but not with that 11-foot plate height. And the way you might approach that is taking your roof element and doing, let's see if I can show this, and doing that with it. In other words, take the long horizontal and bring that out to a gabled end.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Let the bathroom gables go the other way. So that the gabled end might be 9 feet or 9.5 feet, depending on how the geometry works out, but it brings down the scale and bulk of that attachment to the right. Now, I realize you're going to make the argument that nobody can see this. Well, you can see it. You can see it clearly from the public right-of-way on the sidewalk. You might not be able to see it driving a car, but you can see it if you're walking down that dead-end street. So I think the more appropriate approach in terms of proportions and scale is to bring that whole element down. And then I would suggest that your approach to making the little bay window off the bathroom tub, you can in fact make that different than the other bay window that you're popping out to the left. That certainly would be appropriate. The other thing to think about, if you go back to the floor plan, is flipping the master bedroom bed so that when you wake up in the morning, you're looking the other way. You're looking towards the city in a big picture window. And that's exactly how I did my master bedroom on my second floor. When I wake up in the morning, I lift my head off the pillow and I can catch a little glimpse of the ocean between the trees below my house. But I see the morning sun coming up. It's really one of the more delightful part of my days. So just flipping the plan to put the bed on the other side and take the TV and put it either above a window or off to the right would really bring this room in a much bigger way to be much more valuable to your client, because they not only then can see out the doors going out onto the patio, but they also then can see out to the view to the city. And I think if you can make that work, you may have to elongate the master bedroom a little bit so that you have enough room for side tables. Side tables are about 30 inches. If they put a queen size bed in there, that's about 7 feet. But I think if you make that work, that would be a much better way to lay that room out. And then in the bathtub room, by putting in the mirador with a screen, then there's never any issue of privacy, both from your client and or the neighbors, and certainly not from the street. So I think with a rethinking of the roof shape, the bulk of that end, resetting the master bedroom might get you, I think, a much better project than what you have on the sheets right now. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Jonathan.
Well, I go back to that question about that window, and I don't know if Fred has changed it or not, but it looked to me like it didn't fit in design with the one that's there. And that's where I questioned it, and I wondered if my colleagues felt the same way. If not, we can let it go.
Does someone want to reply to Jonathan's question? Board member? Any board members? I guess not.
We can let it go.
Fred.
Jonathan, what I was suggesting in Spanish style and Mediterranean style architecture, a lot of window fenestrations are different. If you look at the best example I can think of is Santa Barbara Courthouse.
Yeah.
There are a myriad of language introduced in terms of the fenestration of windows. They change all over the building. And, you know, in this building, you have garage doors, you have an arched opening, you have this opening, you have a whole bunch of different kinds of windows, and that's okay. That's indicative of Mediterranean style architecture. So this one, but it needs to be different enough. It shouldn't be close, it needs to be different. So that's why I'm suggesting a mirador solution to the bathroom window versus this window.
Well, they're certainly different, and that's why I pointed it out. But I'll go with you.
Yeah, what I've been told by architects is that the Spanish colonial Mediterranean look is very forgiving.
Yeah, okay.
Just a quick question to Jonathan. Do you know what a mirador window is?
No, I don't.
Oh, I mean, Jonathan, our designer.
Oh.
But
no, I'm not familiar with that.
Jonathan, I was trying to find a photograph earlier today, but a good example you can look at, there's an office building at the corner of Santa Barbara and Carrillo Street. It's a two-story office building, I think a bunch of attorney offices. There's second floor miradors on that building. They're made of wood.
Okay.
Yeah, you might take a look there. And also, if you can pick up a book on George Washington. There's a couple of great George Washington Smith books. That if you can get a hold of those, they have some insight there too.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Great. All right, I think that concludes our comments. We need to, let me review, no appealable action can be taken at this time. So does that mean it's only comments, or can we make a motion? I'm asking the city. Ted?
This is Ted. Yeah, so at this point, you may make a motion to give favorable comments, or just comments in general.
Okay.
And then a recommendation for how you would like it to, or, a recommendation for what you think the project is ready for, whether it be project design approval or project design and final approval.
Okay, thank you. So is someone ready to make a motion? Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Fred.
I would move that this project return on an indefinite schedule to the full board with the following comments. That we appreciate the approach to the design of the project in as much as that it will capture the Mediterranean style of the existing house. But we would request that the designer reconsider the roof configuration to lower the plate height at the master bedroom and to restudy the layout of the master bedroom to incorporate perhaps a view window to the city. That the applicant reconsider the window configuration at the new master bath and consider the introduction of a mirador type window configuration or screen at that particular window, in as much as it will be seen from the street and possibly from the adjacent neighbor. That we would encourage the applicant to treat the introduction of new windows and any change in windows to address the traditional Mediterranean style differential between window fenestrations. We would suggest that the applicant restudy the high windows in the middle bathroom as shown on the plan. That the applicant return with confirmation on the stone wainscot, and I'm going to stop my motion there just for a second. The reason, Jonathan, the applicant, that I'm saying that is sometimes we have applicants come to us and show a lot of Santa Barbara sandstone work, etc. And then they come back later and find out it was way too expensive, even if they had the stone on the site, to get it up on the wall. So that's a budget thing you might want to look at before you return. Stepping back into my motion, that the applicant return with a limited landscape plan to indicate what landscaping will be changed as a result of this addition and footprint further into the current yard. And that when the applicant returns, also bring to us general ideas about exterior lighting, both in any landscaping, patio area, or lighting that's attached to the building. That's my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. Any more discussion? Okay, I'd like a roll call, please.
Hi, this is Mary. So we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to go to our next item. We're a little behind. It was scheduled for 4:45. It's now 5:30, but I don't know what that means, but the project is 3354 Cliff Drive. This is a continued item for concept review. Lisa, do we have minutes? How are we doing this?
I don't know.
Board members Miller and James, I will pull up the minutes here and read them off if that would be appropriate.
Sure,
Sure.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think I'm on.
Hi, Mark. Hold on, we're gonna
Hi.
read the minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay.
Somewhere. Ted, are you there?
I am here. I'm currently pulling up the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you.
It was February 3rd.
Yes, so the previous hearing, the most recent hearing with SFDB was on February 3rd, 2020. This was, let's see, for 3354 Cliff Drive. No final appeal action will be taken. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Motion was to continue indefinitely with comments. And the motion carried. Any further information that we need?
Was there any comments?
No, Ted,
Yes,
this
I'll
is
read
Fred.
comments.
Ted, this is Fred. Typically, what we read into, so that all of us as board members know what went on, is you read in the comments, and then typically what we ask the applicant to do is to address the comments that were given one by one. That way we can kind of keep track of what's going on. And then also who voted for what, because sometimes people switch their minds even if they voted for the thing or voted against it, and then they change their minds at the next meeting. That's a little problematic. So if you read how the vote went, who made the motion, who seconded, and what the comments were, that allows us to make sure the applicant has addressed those. Thank you.
Well, the comments just appeared on the screen. So Lisa, would you like to read those, or do you want to read them, Ted? Whatever.
I'll be happy to read them.
Go ahead and read them.
Okay, the
I
motion
apologize, I'm not sure what protocol is, but.
That's fine.
The board gives the project positive comments, and we'd like that you would come with a color board to include metal roofing materials to show outdoor lighting at the home and the front gate, to show the seam and the ridge details of the standing seam metal roof. And action was voted unanimously, and Mr. Ziegler was absent.
Thank you. Were there any comments, Ted? Any public comment?
We didn't receive any written public comment for this project. Ellen, is there
I
The
was
neighbors
just gonna
showed up.
suggest
verbal public comment?
Chair, if we could have the applicant give his presentation, and then I can do public
Alright.
comment.
Thank you. Mark, how did you address those comments?
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Yeah, the neighbor, Susan Strick, next door to the west, showed up in support of the project. As far as the comments 1 and 2, thank you. Comment 3 is on the elevation, which is A5. I cleaned up the elevations to show the metal roof, changed the line weights, added some shadowing, and there is, what? No, that's not the elevation. That's not the elevations that I sent for the project.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
No, there's new ones that were uploaded last week. No.
I don't know how to, Timmy?
Mr. Morando, let me, is it the same ones that are uploaded on the city's website? I can pull those if that's something different than these.
city's website.
Yeah, this is Ellen Kokinda. Timmy, if you don't mind pulling those, Timmy will pull those up. And then Mark, if you could confirm if that's the correct set.
This is Ted. I can confirm that this is the set that was reviewed for the completeness review for project design approval. Mr. Miranda, did you upload?
415. I can forward it to you right now. They're under your email on 4. I sent them 4:15 at 1:05 p.m.
Do they include significant changes from what was reviewed for project design approval?
There's absolutely nothing has changed on this project. It was ready for design approval originally. The only thing I did was I added the hip and valley details for the metal roof, and I cleaned up the elevation line weights. None of the windows, none of the doors, none of the siding, nothing has changed.
Mark, can you check your attachment?
Landscaping at the front.
Just want to double check your attachment, Mark, maybe.
Well, I just re-forwarded to him.
I just wanted to chime in to say that the plans that are uploaded on the city's website for this hearing and this item are the same ones that I had loaded here.
They should have color stuff on A5, and if you want to go back to them, we'll see if that's if they've changed or anything. But yeah, now those are from before that. Yeah, they're the drawings.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Chair Miller, I propose that we take a quick recess to try to determine what's happening with these plans. I believe these were the ones that were reviewed for project design approval.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that we can, if there were new plans that were uploaded and submitted, I'm not sure that we could present those to the board.
Okay.
If they had significant design changes.
Ted, this is Fred Sweeney. Before you get off, I'm going to suggest something here so that we don't trip this project up. If we can't find the appropriate drawings today, then I'd be willing to make a motion to have this project move immediately for Monday's consent calendar so that action can be taken for final approval and we don't have to hold the applicant up because we can't find the right drawings. Would that, Mark, would that be acceptable to you?
That's perfect. That would be great because the drawings are exactly what you wanted. So
sure.
That way we're clear. We're looking at the right set of drawings, and staff can work between now and Monday to make sure we find the right ones.
Okay, and I will second that.
Oh, hold on. So we're making. So hold on. So Fred made a motion, and Jen seconded it. Is that appropriate, Ted? Is this fine? Because I think we're all in agreement that's a good idea.
I think it is, as long as the board feels that it had enough opportunity to ask questions and give comments on the project, then we can move forward with a motion.
Okay, so I'm going to make a quick roll call. If you have any comments, include that in the roll. Well, let's do a roll call. So let me repeat the motion, Fred, is to move the project to consent for Monday, based on the fact that the drawings are not correct, but most of what he's done is complete.
So the only thing, Ted, if you're listening, is, does that meet the noticing requirement to be able to put it on Monday's calendar?
Yes, it does. This project was noticed for this hearing, so as long as the action is included in the minutes for this hearing, then we don't need to renotice it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's have a roll call, please.
Okay, I approve. Yes.
Lisa says yes. Okay, so normally you come up, okay, Lisa. Jan Farrell?
Yes.
Joseph Letitia?
Yes.
Robert Richards?
I'm a yes on this one.
Fred Sweeney?
Yes.
Jonathan Ziegler?
Yes.
Brian Miller? Yes. So the motion moved. So Ted, we're gonna move the project to consent Monday. Is that okay?
Yes, that'll be fine. And then we can, once we have the correct drawings, we can open it up to public comment then as well. Yes, I believe this meets city guidelines.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion, Fred. Let's go to our final project. 1426 Mountain View Road. This is a returned item. Do we have minutes from our previous meeting? I could read into the record the proposal for a 233 square foot addition to the second story of an existing 2,299 square foot two-story single unit residence. Proposal also includes a 49 square foot addition to the existing two-car garage and improvements to the first floor covered terrace and second floor deck. Project also includes a 458 square foot accessory dwelling unit and a second story to be reviewed under a separate permit. The proposal total of 3,480 square feet of development on a 17,424 square foot lot is 79% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval and final approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings. Project was last reviewed on October 28, 2019. So I saw the representative. Hi, Mr. Burnell.
Hello, am I coming through?
Yes, could you please present your project?
Yes, happy to do that. I think that, did you read the minutes or no?
Oh, thank you. We did not. Do we have the minutes, Ted? Lisa, would you like to?
Yes. The minutes, can you make those a little larger, possibly? Even with my reading glasses. Okay, good, thank you. The minutes from October 28th say, number one, the proposed additions are appreciated. 2, overall style of the project is appropriate. Number 3, study the window above the front door on the north elevation, make it more compatible with the proposed elements. 4, provide a landscape plan around the new covered deck. Number 5, show a different configuration for the column on the east elevation at the exterior deck. 6, study the stairways of the deck on the south elevation. The action was proposed by Miller, seconded by Farrell, and was unanimous. Motion carried.
Thank you. So, Mr. Burnell, would you show us how you address those comments?
Yeah, be happy to do that. If we could go to page 10, which is the exterior elevations. I think it's the page before that. Yeah, so there you can see that on the north elevation there, that shows the window above the door that was in question. And you know that the owner was really hemmed in by a headboard size and an existing head height and some structural considerations of going wider than the existing. And so they just elected to go ahead and just leave it as is, rather than try and make a change to it and try to make further adjustments to it. So that's what's going to be done with the comment about relooking at that window. As far as the next comment around the landscape plan, I sent in an additional group of photos last week. If we could bring those up and just go to the last one, page 6. Actually, go back 2 photos. So you can see there that there's a path kind of in the foreground that goes along. And so if you go to the next photo over, one more, or the next photo down, you can see that path continues around, and that's the location where the addition is proposed, where that existing deck is. And so the owners are going to plan to try and maintain the work area inside that path and try not to disrupt the rest of the yard there. And so those bushes that you see there, I think there's 5 or 6 of them, are going to be transplanted out and put aside, and then they'll put them back in the same locations when they get done. So going to the extent of actually drawing up a whole landscape plan and the irrigation or whatever stuff that might come with it seemed a little much. So we were hoping that the board would accommodate just having that as a condition, that the existing planting, which is relatively new, they remodeled the house a couple years ago and then landscaped everything. And then I think something changed and needed to do this second phase. So they want to replace that landscaping the way it is. And that would be our proposal to address that. If we could go back to the drawings, let's see, zoom out a little bit so I can see the other. Okay, so that east elevation down there, you can see the configuration that is now proposed on that outdoor covered terrace. And if you go down one page to the rear elevation, you'll be able to see that it's the same configuration that was there. I guess we don't have what was there before, but we had a column in the center of that on the east elevation. And I think the board's comments was that that was a little awkward and that we should look at a different way to do it. And, upon looking at it a little closer, the owner, wasn't completely aware of what I had proposed there and really wanted it open anyway. So that they wanted to go ahead and just eliminate that column. So those both look the same. I think that resolves that issue. And then as far as the stairways, I wasn't 100% sure what to really do in regards to that comment. Part of this deck on the south elevation over next to underneath that trellis that's shown is existing. And so the framing is there, the posts are there. The center portion is going to be raised up, so it'll be built new, but it's basically just your standard issue nail space wood deck that will have a rim board that goes around, and then the stringers will come down for the stairs, and you'll see the edges of the 2x treads going down, and the rod iron rail will just attach to the top of it. So if we were to go back to the photos once more, I think you can see, especially if you go up one in the photos, that they've really landscaped this out. You're not going to see anything down there. And so to kind of get into anything more complicated than that, especially on the back of the house in a location where they're on the top of a hill, no one can see into this yard at all. They just wanted to keep a very simple design there. So if we go back to the drawings, I think we could go to the last sheet, and there's a detail that shows kind of the connection. Oh, excuse me, I forgot about the structural. Go to sheet number 13. Huh. That's odd. I'm not quite sure what happened there. We have a detail that just shows, the beam that will go across to support the deck, and then a standard hanger with oh, there we go. Yeah, so that detail number 8 down there shows sort of the typical connection. Yeah, there we go. So I think that's really everything that we've got. Those were the 4 items. In general, I think the board was pretty happy with the overall project. So it's just a couple details we needed to address.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, thank you. Ted, did we get any emails? And did we get public comment?
This is Ellen Kokinda. I don't see anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. Again, just a reminder to raise your hand, but I'm going to hand it back to Ted to respond to the written public comment.
Chair Miller, there's no public comment, no written public comment for this project.
All right, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the board. I will list read your name and see if you have any questions. Lisa James?
I do. I have one question. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to save it for comments. No
Okay,
question.
Jan Farrell?
No questions.
Thank you. Joe Matisha?
No questions. No questions.
Okay, thank you. Robert Richards?
I don't have any questions.
Fred Sweeney?
Just very quickly, while the rest of us are discussing, maybe the applicant or staff can give us a clue, either a vicinity map or center, so when we make a motion, we can define the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan Ziegler?
No questions.
Thank you. I have no questions either. Let's move it to comments. Lisa James, do you have comments?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Comment about the transplanting of the existing landscaping. It would be more economical to start again because transplanting plants that big, you're going to lose 50% of those what look like woody shrubs. So you will need a little landscape plan, just saying replace as existing, but I wouldn't try and take those out and then stash them. Be worth more labor than it's worth. Thank you.
Jen Farrell? Any comment?
No comments.
Joseph Matisha?
No comments.
Thank you. Robert Richards?
No, I don't have any other comments.
All right, thank you. Fred?
No comments.
Jonathan?
No comments.
Wow, okay then. I guess we're ready to make a motion. Now, Fred brought up the thing about a neighborhood, so there you go. So who would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, since we're closing in right at 6 o'clock, we might finish a few minutes after. I would make a motion to give this project design approval and final approval as submitted, and that we define the neighborhood for compatibility issues as the area between Island View Drive, Kenwood Road, and I can't read the road to the west, whatever that name is there.
I can't either.
Mountain Drive, Mountain Road, excuse me. So that's the neighborhood. We're making the determination. And then if we can go back to the agenda so I can read the requirement, can we flip back to the agenda item, please? There we go. So that we find neighborhood preservation, that the materials being proposed are appropriate for the neighborhood, that the size and scale is appropriate, that the board agrees to the changes being proposed and appreciates the applicant's desire to retain the front second floor window that was under discussion, and that there is an insignificant amount of soil being moved in terms of slope lot findings, and that the general approach to the design does not impede the compatibility for the hillside design district. And that's my motion.
Thank you very much. Can I have a roll call, please?
Oh, wait, I second it first.
Oh, Jan,
Can I-
and Jan seconds it. Thank you. Now I want a roll call.
All right, this is Mary. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. So that, I think that's our last agenda item. So that, I believe that concludes our single family design board meeting for April 27th.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.